Back in the 70s, the last day of school before the summer break held just as much anticipation as waiting for Christmas Day. Back in those days, at least where I grew up, the last day of school was only half a day, and when the lunch bell rang, you were done until September, which seemed so far into the future, you didn't even think about it until your mom took you for back-to-school clothes shopping about a week before Labor Day. Then it got real once again. But between those two dates, the summer was yours, and you made the most of it. Most of the time. Sometimes my parents would have a small vacation planned, and when they did, it was usually the day right after school ended, and we'd be gone for about a week or so someplace camping or visiting relatives. Back in those days, we obviously didn't have the internet, cell phones, or social media to keep in touch with friends or post pictures. So when you came back after being gone for about a week or so, you had no idea if your friends in the neighborhood were on vacation as well, and if nobody was answering the phone, you might be confronted with the task of actually having to walk the couple of blocks to their house to see if anyone was home, something that might be a little foreign to today's youth. We lived on the edge of town in a small subdivision with wide roads, low traffic, lots of kids, and endless hills and woods to forge trails through. Holy crap, that was a long time ago. One year, a construction company was building new houses, and they let us raid the scrap wood pile, and we dragged that stuff about a mile or so into the woods and tried to build our own version of a cabin, which took almost a month as I recall, and ended up looking nothing like a cabin, but more of a half-assed framed platform that we ended up stapling garbage bags to as walls. But we showed up every day like we were construction workers, we brought snacks, we dug a large hole and lined it with rocks and made a fire pit and cooked wieners and ate them using rolled up bread as our buns. We had campouts there, sat around the fire, told ghost stories that nobody found particularly scary, but as one finished, someone else would try to top it with something even more spine-tingling, before moving on to telling jokes we overheard our dad saying, and ones our mothers wouldn't like us repeating. Years later, when summertime meant getting a job instead of trekking the forest, I remembered that old crappy cabin we built and went looking for it. It was probably 6 or 7 years later, but the remnants of it still remained. The garbage bag walls were long gone, and our attempt at framing didn't stand the test of time and buckled under the pressure of the changing seasons. I never went back after that, not that I recall anyways, and when I checked out Google Maps about 1,000 years later, it looked like the subdivision had stretched its way across the landscape and swallowed up not just the old headquarters, but much of the surrounding woodland that was our playground. Progress at its finest. Summertime for kids in most towns meant a lot of sports going on. Sandlot baseball, road hockey, mountain biking in the hills, and where I lived, there was a siren on the hill overlooking the valley. When it went off, we saw it as our cue to drop our bats and gloves at our feet and bolt home for some lunch and watch the Flintstones, which I think aired daily at noon in every country on the planet in those days. But like I said, you knew those days were numbered on the morning you got up, and your mother informed you that you'd be spending a good portion of your day at the most boring department store ever created, which stood, I'm sure, as a monument to every parent who enjoyed torturing their children with the horrific task of trying on every pair of pants and every shirt in the place, with the festivities being capped off by getting what was usually the only haircut you'd get for that year. Gotta take the punches, I guess. But then you'd have 10 months to look forward to the next summer break and do it all again. But on that first day of school after the Labor Day weekend, you presented yourself to your classmates with a fresh new haircut, new pair of corduroy pants, and a collared short-sleeve shirt. Your parents' pride and joy, ready for the scholastic time of his life. You know your childhood summers meant something to you when you can sit down and write about them over 40 years later and actually remember that time in so many vivid details. We should all feel so lucky to have had those experiences. I know I do.